Property tax skyrockets across the nation, leading to an unimaginable wave of buyers' regret and homeowners in distress. And for some of those homeowners, like we're about to show you, their property tax bills went up a mind-blowing 3,800%. Now, millions of Americans are now trapped in their houses as a direct result of their property taxes essentially doubling in 2 years. After all, you guys, what good is a 3% mortgage rate if your property taxes just doubled and you weren't prepared for it? Now, also in today's video, we're going to show you guys 4 different videos from victims of tax fraud, and some of these stories are absolutely heartbreaking. We also have an extremely urgent update for you, and we need your help. Mitch Vexler has finally filed his criminal complaint aimed at eliminating property taxes for good, and the parties named in this complaint are absolutely going to rock your soul. During today's video, we're also going to read into public record a foreword that was prepared for the United States Justice Department and Attorney General of the United States, Pamela Bondi. Among many things, property tax violates the U.S. Constitution, primarily 4 amendments that I want you guys as the viewers to always remember. Property taxes violate the 1st, 5th, 14th, and 16th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And so, let's start today's video with some action. As you guys see on the screen, this is the filed criminal complaint that Mitch Vexler has just sent off to the Department of Justice. But before we go into this, Mitch, can you give the viewers a quick update on the status of the bill to end property taxes in the state of Texas? What's the status on that right now?
The bill, I just found out a few minutes ago, is actually in the legal department. And with a little bit of luck, it'll be handed back on Monday or Tuesday to me so that I can just double check and make sure that whatever was changed is as intended. They obviously have their own legal requirements, but the bottom line is that bill is designed to eliminate real estate tax in favor of the uniform states sales tax. And it walks that process through, and it connects an awful lot of the dots to get the task done, where people's houses are not being taken and this perpetual fraud is not constantly year after year being committed.
Let's jump right into the criminal complaint that was filed, and this is a bad boy right here. But before I do that, I want to make super duper clear that you guys understand that this criminal complaint, not only is it filed, but Mitch made it in a way to design it for you as a template. In other words, you guys, if you want to help end property taxes, again, this is not how to protest the value. This is ending property taxes for good. Remember, you can download this template by going to this video's description, and you guys can click any one of these links right here and access that template and start filling out yourself. In addition to that, you guys can go to the Real Estate Mindset Empowerment Center, and you guys can actually download that right here. You can see the digital downloads criminal complaint draft. You can also go to the homepage of the Empowerment Center and you can access this free course. This free course right here is an accumulation of almost all of the work that Mitch Vexler has done. So we prefer that you guys access that criminal complaint through that course, because that course takes you guys through the entire situation when it comes to property tax fraud and what we can do about it as Americans. Jumping back into this criminal complaint, this is against the Denton Central Appraisal District, Denton County School District, associated entities, and individual defendants. And I'm going to read some of these defendants, but the first thing I want to make clear, Mitch, is when was this filed?
This was sent to the DOJ and received on Tuesday of this week. They're obviously going to have to put it through their cycle and do whatever it is that they're going to do before it gets where it's going to go. But it was sent straight to Pam Bondi.
Tuesday was the 4th, I think. So yeah. March 4th. Okay. So this March 4th, again, this is a template. I'm going to read the first part of this right here. Mitch Vexler, President GP of Mavic Shops and Flower Mound LP. The complaint in this case hereby states the following is true to the best of its knowledge and belief that the defendants and co-conspirators, including but not limited to those stated below, have set out to defraud the American public on a mass scale. You guys think about that one sentence right there. In order to show and prove a pattern and practice of intent to defraud on a mass scale, Denton Central Appraisal District and its co-conspirators, including its board of directors, comprised of Charles Stafford, Roy Atwood, who's also an attorney, Alex Buck, Chief Appraiser Don Spencer. How is this guy still working at Denton? If you guys want a project, ask Denton County Appraisal District how Don Spencer is still working for them. And do they care about manipulating data outside of the system? We have the audio. They're not hiding it. They also go on and say ex-Chief Appraiser Hope McClure, Deputy Chief Appraiser Chris Littrell, Chuck Saling, Commercial Department DCAD, County Judge Andy Eads, Texas State Comptroller, and BRB Board Member. And here's the kicker, you guys, Glenn Hagar, DCAD's attorney, Brandon Metcalf, DCAD Board of Directors, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, Texas Licensing and Certification Board, Louisville Independent School District, Denton Independent School District, Colonial Independent School District, along with every other school district and the school district superintendents in the state of Texas that will not provide proper notes to the balance sheet, sources, and uses of the bond schedule and adherence to GAAP, all of whom are in violation of multiple state and federal laws. Mitchell French, who's retired Denton County Tax Assessor Collector, Don Wayne, current Denton County Tax Assessor Collector, and here's the thing, you guys, Governor Abbott. This hurts me because I want to believe in Mr. Abbott. I'm hoping it's a mistake. I'm hoping it's a misunderstanding, and I'm hoping we can come together. But unfortunately, in this criminal complaint, as you guys see here, Governor Abbott, it goes on to say, Dan Patrick, member, Bond Review Board, and Rob Letitia, Executive Director, Bond Review Board, and the accounting firms and accountants for these organizations, Senator Paul Bentoncorp and Ken Paxton, State Attorney General. Let me just read this last thing here. This is very, very powerful. While acting or purporting to act under the color of an official capacity, has exerted and authorized beyond the scope of his or their office, and or took positions that justified recusal, and in the process denied complaints and others similarly situated in the full and free access to and or enjoyment of rights secured by the Constitution and laws of both the state of Texas and the United States of America. Before we go into the forward, which is right here, and we're going to jump between the forward, just for the viewers, we're going to jump between this forward to the U.S. Justice Department and videos of victims of tax fraud. But Mitch, anything else you want to say about the criminal complaint that was just filed?
Every person who owns real estate across the United States of America should read that criminal complaint cover to cover. It's about 45 pages, but that is the roadmap of who did it, how it was done, over what period of time it was done. There are live links. They're highlighted in blue inside of that document. So the evidence that's spoken of inside of that document is live linked to all the full-blown evidence. So if it's multiple pages, it's linked to multiple pages. Over and above that, in addition to the forward that we're about to get into, was a spreadsheet that was delivered. It's a master spreadsheet with roughly 1,100 links to additional evidence that was delivered to Pam Bondi at the DOJ. As I've said in the past, this isn't a personal issue. What this is a closed loop system that is hard to break into inside of the state of Texas. When you have police officers and DAs who refuse to do their job, which is to prosecute what has been handed to them, the only recourse that we had, even after I offered to sit in front of anybody, Ken Paxton, the committee at the House Ways and Means Committee, Senator Betancourt, Don Spencer, gave him 15 people of his choosing, didn't matter, but they refused. Well, you cannot refuse anymore. This is a full-blown criminal complaint. I don't take it lightly. I take it very seriously. The evidence is what we have handed over to the Department of Justice. And all those links go to all additional evidence. So we are where we are as a direct result of their intent. This isn't by accident. This is by intent. Over and above that, there was a meeting yesterday, a committee meeting at the House here in Texas. And that was extraordinarily painful to watch. But there's a lot of people that are talking about something they know nothing. Literally, they know nothing about. If you don't understand what USPAP is and you're sitting on these committees, you're making a fool out of yourself. And what you're going to find in due course, in 3 questions, most of these people can be proven to be what it is they are. And that's coming up shortly.
Mitch, just for anyone that's confused, can you tell us why you named Governor Abbott in your complaint?
Governor Abbott is a member of the executive branch of the state of Texas, as is Ken Paxton as the Attorney General, as is Glenn Hagar as a state comptroller. State comptroller had sworn complaints given to him about these problems. And that was over a year and a half ago, to which the response was, we don't have the right to enforce, and that's in writing. So we're not goofing around here. This is real. We've got the evidence. It's in their own writing. It's their own audio. It's their own video. It's their own rules and regulations. It's their constitution. They have violated each one of those without exception. So what we really have here is a closed loop economic system of fraud. That's why we had no choice but to send this off to the Department of Justice. They refused to even talk about it. You can't get in front of them. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to know anything. They just want to perpetuate the fraud. Good luck to you.
I really hope it's just a misunderstanding. Like, we can't expect everyone to know everything, but certainly we can expect our elected officials to do the job that they swore an oath to uphold. And so I am worried. I'm worried. I want to believe in Governor Abbott. And I want to give, I know we all do. We want to give him the benefit of the doubt. There's probably a misunderstanding, but this is real. This is math. We can help with this. I want to ask you one more question. We'll get into the videos and we'll get into the forward, but Governor Dos Santos has been making a lot of headlines recently about the fact that he wants to end, he's saying, this is the governor, this is great. The governor of Florida, Dos Santos, is saying they want to end property taxes for good. Should we just help Florida instead of Texas, Mitch? I mean, I feel like once one state starts, it's groundwork for the rest of the states. So if Texas isn't listening, if unfortunately, God willing, this is not true, but if they're corrupt and they don't want to do this, maybe we should be focusing on Florida. What are your thoughts on Dos Santos and what Florida is accomplishing right now with property taxes?
There are people behind the scenes in Florida that are doing what it is that I've done because I have helped them. So it is in Florida, but it's also in every state in the union. And that's why I said every person who owns property needs to go and read this document. It is the roadmap on how to stop this. It is the roadmap of what was done by whom. So once you understand the methods of completely ignoring uniform standards of professional appraisal practice and what the spinoff is from that issue, then you can simply apply it to your state and your position. If you have 1 criminal complaint or 2 criminal complaints per state, this whole house of cards is coming down because all these politicians will be named. And it's not a case of, does it do good to put these people in jail? In certain circumstances, yes, obviously it does. But that's a necessity as a direct result of what they have done. My point is the cost of what they have done, the interest, just the interest, never mind the principal, the interest on the paper, chasing paper, is in the trillions as a direct result of the bond fraud. That is put on the backs of mom and pop. That's why what Travis is about to go through on a couple of these videos is why you're seeing 3,800% increases. This isn't sustainable under any circumstance for anybody. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for society. And those who have participated, I'm sorry, there are going to be some people that need to go to jail over this. Now, how long they could go to jail, that's not my call. That's Pam Bondi's call. I'm not a prosecutor. What I am is the person, for whatever reason, whatever the powers that be that stuck me here to do this, I'm the guy that can explain it. I understand the math under the hood. I've tied it all together. Obviously, I've had some help, but the point of the matter is we tied USPAP to the math, to the Texas Constitution, to the Texas Property Tax Code, to the Texas Education Act, the TEA, to the Constitution of the United States of America. We've tied it all together. That is what is in this criminal complaint. They cannot get away from this criminal complaint. There's no way out. The box is closed. It's just a question of what does the Department of Justice do with it? But the bottom line is everybody needs to see it because this is your money, and your future, if you think that owning a house is your entitlement, which under normal circumstances it would be, the truth is they flipped it. They've made it their entitlement on your back and on your pocketbook.
Real quick for the viewers, because I see some of the comments, a lot of people still don't know what USPAP is, the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practices. USPAP, you guys, is the math that's designed to fairly create a value for a house. And within USPAP, you guys, there's thresholds that it would be impossible for some of the value to go up 3,800%. So what's happening is they're using software that makes us think that they're mimicking USPAP, but in reality, they're not. They're just backing into a budget. But let's start with talking about their forward to the United States Justice Department and in between again, you guys, so that we break this up and make it a little bit more entertaining. We're going to play videos of victims of tax fraud so you guys really understand what the heck is really going on around America. Quick reminder, this forward is available for each and every one of you in this video's description if you want to download it. Now, this is a forward to sworn criminal complaint. This was prepared for the United States Justice Department, Attorney General of the United States of America, Pamela Bondi. And I'm just going to read the first section. I absolutely love it, and I am absolutely honored to read this, and I really appreciate you as a patriot, Mitch, beyond words. To the attention of Mrs. Pamela Bondi, U.S. Attorney General of the United States of America, please take receipt of this sworn criminal complaint. Remember, you guys, this is already filed. They have this information, testimony, and they have the evidence on the behalf of the real estate taxpayer of Texas and the citizens of the United States of America. This sworn testimony, including this opening statement, video, spreadsheet, evidence log, audio of this forward, and related information, is to be used as the foundation and grounds to stop an incredible wrong that has been committed by elected leaders, state and public officials for many years, which said evidence under law requires criminal prosecution. This sworn complaint shows the pattern and practice of equity stripping property owners, not just in Texas, but across the United States of America. Innocent taxpayers and individuals in Texas and throughout the United States have lost everything they own due to the fraud and corruption that has been allowed to go unchecked and unchallenged by elected leaders and public officials after years and years of turning their backs on their constituents and on their taxpayers and the very laws that govern the state of Texas and all states in the union. This sworn testimony will be used as a guide to highlight a long list of violations of laws, statutes, and rules pertaining to bond fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, wire fraud, property tax fraud, and corruption, including but not limited to the use of public funds to procure contracts that are fraudulent and deceptive by design and executed with the deliberate intention to defraud you and I, the taxpayers in Texas, and the same and similar methods of fraudulent contracts are applicable across the United States of America. This sworn testimony is the direct result of thousands of hours of research and considerable expenses by Mitch Vexler and individuals directly impacted by the negligence and failure of the elected leaders in Texas at all levels of government and law enforcement to uphold the rule of law in the state of Texas. Please, Governor Abbott, I believe in you still, brother. Those efforts led to an initial video to warn the public. I remember that video like it was yesterday, Mitch, which led to several video interviews, which led to more evidence from across the United States and the world, including Canada, and the creation of a library of evidence at Mitch's website, mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD. The more questions that arose, the more research that we did, and the clearer the focus on the pattern and practice of criminality became. To our knowledge, this is the first time that the math, we've seen other lawsuits, we've seen other bills, we've seen other legislation, but for the first time, math is being used here. Math of USPAP has been tied to the Texas Property Tax Code, to the Texas Education Code 45, to the Texas Constitution, and to the Constitution of the United States of America. The net result of all of these efforts is this sworn criminal complaint with the associated evidence which proves, and I'm going to add this beyond a shadow of doubt, the necessity for criminal prosecution regarding real estate tax fraud, school district bond fraud, and the related school district energy contract fraud that was discovered and documented by Mr. Mashburn. Jeff, thank you, sir, for being a patriot, which is being sent to you under a separate criminal complaint. So far, that's a very, very powerful forward. Do me a favor, viewers. Comment below, pause the video. What do you think so far of that forward? Which, by the way, again, that's a copy for you. But we're going to go into the first video from the homeowner whose property tax bill went from $1,800 to $30,000, a 3,800% increase, which if you're using USPAP or even standard deviation, that's impossible. Take a listen to this video.
He lives a modest lifestyle. He bought this 3-bedroom, 1-bath home in 2006 and paid cash $115,000. Just days ago, his home sweet home on Gardner Avenue in unincorporated Chicago Heights felt more like a nightmare. This is the tax bill that Lloyd received last year, a little over $1,800. But this is the whopping bill he received last week, a property tax hike of over $3,811% for a total of over $30,000. The property was valued at over $1 million.
Nothing over here is worth $1 million.
The diesel mechanic and safety inspector is currently receiving disability after suffering an injury.
I had to move in with a relative or something. You know, I can't afford it.
The Cook County Treasurer's Office says sadly Lloyd isn't the only homeowner with a large tax bill. The office conducted this analysis and found that, quote, the assessor's office acknowledged it erred in calculating land values for more than 4,400 homes in the south and southwest suburbs. That led to severe overassessments for homes on larger plots of land. The errors were discovered too late in the process for them to be corrected before tax bills were calculated, printed, and mailed.
I wanted to show you that video because I want you to understand how they're facilitating the fraud. They're essentially using software to commit the fraud and to keep the fraud going. Now, this software mimics USPAP, but the thing is, guys, it's just mimicking USPAP. It's not really using USPAP because these programs and software still allows the users to go into individual properties and make changes. And in addition to that, it also allows users to change property characteristics for more broad properties like mass appraisals. In other words, they just allow people to commit fraud and they allow budgets as an input. A budget from a school should not have anything to do with the value of a house. That's absolutely upside down. Now, before we jump back into the forward, Mitch, anything you want to say to comment on that video?
Yes, it was not an error. It was intent. And the reason why I'm saying it was intent is because in order for those bills to have been sent out, somebody had to fraudulently certify the tax roll. Otherwise, those bills don't go out. So you've got fraudulent certification of the tax roll. You've got a corrupt database, like Travis was just saying. 1 + 1 = 2, and that's intent, and that's criminal conspiracy to defraud. Brief background and history. Elected leaders in Texas have ignored the rule of law and common sense regarding how government is funded in the state of Texas. When the Texas legislators enacted legislation to allow ad valorem taxation on personal property 6 decades ago, it was a very poor choice and the wrong approach to funding the government. Over the decades, state leaders have used a Band-Aid approach to try and right the many wrongs with the current system in place, and since its inception, failing to understand or care about interest on debt or debt burdens of its constituents. Due to the lack of understanding of basic economics, math, and how financial systems work, the leaders of Texas for decades put their greed first and have now put the state of Texas on the brink of total financial collapse. This is not hyperbole, but is stated fact. School bond debts, in many cases, now exceed 50% of the home's stated market value. That means a household, as deemed by the taxing entity, i.e. the school district, which on average is 83% liable for the total of all bonds raised by the taxing entities, which owns the Central Appraisal District, that's the CADS, is burdened with not just their usual amortizing mortgage, but also burdened by a second non-amortizing, cumulatively compounding, fraudulently created, non-implicit guaranteed additional mortgage, AKA a Ponzi scheme. Of the many problems and issues that we have discovered while exposing the fraud and corruption, the single most devastating revelation is the outstanding bond debt that has not been retired for decades, but rolled up and rolled out. The financial impact in Texas and the related fallout is worth approximately $650 billion in principal debt and interest that will never be repaid. It is quantifiably impossible for this debt to be repaid because it is impossible to get blood out of a stone, meaning that the median household income is not large enough to cover the average household expenses and mortgage, never mind the additional fraudulent mortgage known as the school district bond debt. This criminal behavior is the causation of a giant Ponzi scheme by elected leaders and local taxing entities passing bond packages and projects that are beyond the ability of taxpayers to ever repay. The Ponzi scheme is made worse by the power of the government demanding payment or the loss of the asset will occur, and that is the definition of RICO. Taxpayers in Texas and every other state do not have enough money to cover the fraudulently created overvaluation, which creates the overtaxation and which leads many people to losing their most valuable asset, being their home. This is equity stripping. It is the intentional and criminal act. The number of individuals that have lost their home or in the process is staggering today, and this continues. School districts across the United States are pushing out even more bond referendums. Many of these school districts are in direct violation of their state's constitution, and in the case of Texas, far exceed the 25% limitation on bond programs based on the total aggregate value of existing bond debt. This has been going on in Texas for decades and actually promoted by elected leaders and school officials. The Ponzi scheme involves the local taxing entities in the Central Appraisal District, the CADS, all across the state. The Central Appraisal Districts are inflating property values to keep the scam going while putting taxpayers in jeopardy of losing their homes. To be 100% crystal clear, there is no nexus between the cost to operate a school district or a municipality and uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, which is required by law. The use of predetermined budgets from which market value is determined and an assessed value created is an immediate fraud. The compound cumulative effect of year over year, fraud on fraud, has created an accounting fraud, AKA the Ponzi scheme, in Texas and across the United States that is many times larger than Enron and WorldCom combined.
Very powerful words, Mitch. Definitely appreciate it. Let's move on to the second video from a victim of tax fraud who had a 3% mortgage. So again, a lot of people don't realize some of the biggest victims are the people that got those 3% mortgages because they got blindsided from a percentage basis the most. Listen to what she has to say.
It's from a video where a realtor in Tampa Bay is talking about the trend of seeing people move out of the state of Florida, and then saw this comment, which is exactly my experience too. In the last 2 of the 5 years that I've lived here, my insurance and taxes have doubled. Both of them have doubled in the last 2 years alone. So it doesn't do you any good to have a 3% interest rate if you're going to have those extra fees rolled into your mortgage every year, rising at an unsustainable rate. That makes no sense. Pair that with the fact that the rental market isn't doing good. So I don't even have the option to rent my property out and buy somewhere cheaper because I would never break even on renting my property out unless I wanted to do an Airbnb and turn people over all the time. Pair that with raises every year at my job aren't capturing the increase. It's insane.
Remember, you guys, most HOAs and subdivisions don't allow Airbnb short-term rentals. So it's kind of crazy that even at a 3% interest rate, the only way that she can cash flow is by doing short-term rental, which is kind of like fraud feeding fraud. I mean, this lady is literally the only way out is to put a hotel right next to her neighbors. Let's go back to the forward, Mitch, when you're ready, sir.
The arguments, complaint and violations outline. See the violations in the criminal complaint. Again, inside the criminal complaint, when you go through it, you'll see a whole bunch of violations. Everything is highlighted in blue. If it's blue, you can click on it and bigger documents will come up. It's a live linked document. Complaint and violations outline: 1, bond fraud and corruption. Equity stripping the wealth of all property owners. I, fraudulently inflated property valuations by central appraisal districts. 1, failure to adhere to rules of use PAP. 2, failure to adhere to the Texas state constitution. 3, failure to adhere to property tax law. 4, failure to administer and practice fair and equal application of home valuations among home and property owners. B, deliberate provision to allow a perpetual debt cycle, AKA a Ponzi scheme. I, failure to retire existing debt. 1, due to the cumulative compounding of interest and debt, the alleged $130 billion outstanding debt, school debt, in Texas alone, which can never be repaid by the Texas property owners. That's according to the BRB, Bond Review Board, of which Governor Abbott is the chair. Bond Review Board does not track all school bond debt in the state of Texas. 2, school districts refuse to release bond payment schedules. A, not a single school district has released a bond payment schedule, proper notes to the balance sheet, sources and uses, and adherence to GAAP, generally accepted accounting practices. There are no details outlining the hidden investment pools or how the money has been spent for decades while the equity has been stripped from mom and pop and put into the pockets of criminals. B, school officials and their accounting firms are guilty of accounting fraud and corruption. I, legal counsel and co-conspirators paid via tax receipts are guilty of fraud and racketeering with public funds to generate more tax receipts via the fraudulent overvaluation and thus the overtaxation. 3, rolling up and rolling out existing debt. A, school board officials have been pushing out the debt and refinancing debt for decades at higher interest rates. B, refinancing debt with higher interest rates causes every project to become more expensive to the taxpayers. C, a bond program going back 15 years now costs millions of dollars more due to higher interest rates and the rule of 72.
You guys want to be a homeowner yet? If you do, you better be careful. Now, the next video I'm going to show you guys is how a 94-year-old homeowner was absolutely swindled. And it's not just in the United States. Remember, you guys, Canada also uses USPAP. They just put a C in front of it for Canada. Take a listen to this video.
3-year-old Liz Diachin has had this farm property in Warkworth, northeast of Coburg, for 58 years. Across the road in front of her home is a small plot of land she owns. Since her daughter and grandson each currently rent homes, she decided to give them the land to help out.
There's a couple of lots there that you could build on. And of course, they were thrilled.
Diachin's lawyer told her even though she was giving the land away, she would still have to get it appraised to pay capital gains.
And I said, why should I pay capital gain? You know, I'm not selling it to them. I'm gifting it to them.
One lot has a hydro tower on it and the other is partial wetlands. Still, it was valued at over $250,000. Diachin was told she must pay $40,000 in capital gains taxes.
I said, are you kidding? Are you kidding? I'm on pension. Like, how am I going to pay for that?
The government said changes to the capital gains system will only impact Canada's richest citizens.
We're making Canada's tax system more fair by ensuring that the very wealthiest pay their fair share.
Liz, are you rich?
Are you kidding me? I'm 93 years old. Like, who's going to give me a mortgage? Or who's going to give me a loan?
It's created a lot of uncertainty.
Real estate lawyer Mark Weisletter says even when giving away property, CRA still wants its share of capital gains.
CRA makes it very clear that when you transfer a property, even by gift, it is deemed to have been transferred at fair market value.
Diachin feels the tax system is unfair.
When families are trying to help other members of the family, they're being penalized for it. Let them tax the wealthy, and that's fine, because they're not going to miss it. But we sure are.
That's in another country in Canada. That shows a pattern in practice. Obviously, this is happening everywhere, you guys. Think about it. She was blessed enough to own a property, but because of decades of fraud, corruption, and greed, she got penalized $40,000 for trying to give that property away to her family. $40,000. What right does that government have to take that money from her? Absolutely astounding. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Mitch have a break, and I'm going to read this next section of the foreword that really emphasizes the laws that are being violated. There cannot be all of these violations of law, but for intent. Formal written complaints were delivered already to the Texas State Comptroller, Glenn Hagar, at the request of the FBI, also to the TDLR and TALCB, which were all ignored. Every one of these divisions refused to enforce their own regulations. Think about that, guys. And therefore have broken multiple state and federal laws. USPAP, a requirement under state law, exists to quantify information and to prohibit subjective guessing. Every one of these divisions exists as an illusion of legitimacy and conspire in unison to take real estate taxpayer funds, defrauding us. After realizing the depth of the problem and suffering annual lawsuits created by DCAD and its employees, fraudulent overvaluations, initially Mitch produced a few videos, which over time turned into dozens of videos, all of which are on YouTube, not just to inform the American public of the crimes being used against them, but to inform the government officials, in that I sent many of those officials emails, formal complaints, used both video and press to outline exactly what was and is transpiring. And in every instance, these officials breaking the laws and refuse to enforce the laws, willingly and with knowledge continue to break both state and federal laws. They know the laws are being violated and they choose to do nothing about it. The laws that have been violated include and are not limited to state, civil, and criminal, state constitution, federal, civil, and criminal, and the Constitution of the United States of America. In addition, and as a result of their conspired actions, the state of Texas has violated its own constitution and the Constitution of the United States of America. The officials, under the color of law, steal more money by overvaluation and resulting overtaxation to cover their crimes. And if you don't pay, they take your property. This conforms to every requirement of RICO, including crossing state lines. Now, here's just a fraction of the violated laws and regulations. Texas Penal Code 37.11, defaulting and duties of a public officer. Texas Penal Code 7.01, intentionally failed to report criminal activity. Texas Property Tax Code Chapter 5, Section 501 and 504, Texas Constitution Article 8, Section 20, Texas Constitution Article 8, Section 1A, Texas Property Tax Code 23.01 E and F, 23.012, 23.013, and Texas Property Tax Code 42.26, and this is a good one, Property Tax Code 23.01, tax roll certification falsified, school district balance sheets falsified, Title 42 U.S. Code Section 1986, knowledge of wrongful act and power to prevent. That's a good one. And here's another good one. U.S. Constitution being the 1st, 5th, 14th, and 16th Amendment. Don't forget that one. Texas and U.S. Administrative Procedures Act. Title 18 of Criminal Code, U.S. Code Section 1621, perjury. Title 18, U.S. Code Section 1512, C12, who corruptly alters, destroys, or conceals a record. Wonder if any of that's going on. Article 7 of the U.S. Constitution, supremacy. The state of Texas has violated again its own constitution. And in bold here, it is important to note that these laws work in tandem with each other to the point where taking one law away brings the entire house of cards down, as the other laws cannot function or form the rule of law. Either the law exists or it doesn't. Moving on to one more video. This is a video of a homeowner that's in a natural disaster hit area. So remember, you guys, natural disasters, they don't care about race or income or political affiliations. And think about how many of these people have recently been hit by either fire or flooding. That's once in a lifetime. I mean, a lot of these people don't even have insurance, and so they've lost everything. Listen to this, guys.
Losing their homes. I live in Florida, and my entire neighborhood just flooded 3 months ago from the hurricane. Half of my neighborhood have lost their homes. Yes, I'm in a nicer area, so they say, you guys deserved it. You're all millionaires, blah, blah, blah. Now, I want to say, in my entire neighborhood, I'm the only street that's on the water. The rest of the homes, the home values have gone up over the years. There's a woman across the street from me, literally across the street from me. She's in her 90s, okay? She bought that house when she first got married, probably in her 20s. When I spoke to her years ago, she told me that she had a choice between her lot and my lot. My lot was $20,000 and her lot was $15,000. Okay, she chose her lot because she could still see the ocean at that time because there were no lots on my side. Now her house is over $1 million. She bought it for $15,000. Okay, she's nowhere near a millionaire. She has $1 million home now, which is now gone. These people cannot afford to rebuild their homes. I do not know one person who has gotten an insurance payment yet. Not one. All of these people have lost everything. They have nothing. And I get that, like, in California, like, they're $5 million homes, but it was not like that when they bought them. These homes have been in these generations for years. And they bought them for such a low amount at the time. And now they cost so much more. They cannot afford to rebuild them. There is people who can afford to rebuild their homes. The majority of them cannot. Also, these millionaires, their homes are tied up in their equity. They have a $2 million mortgage and $800,000 in insurance. Flood in Florida, $250 max. That's all you're getting. $250,000 to rebuild your $2 million house structure. You can sell the land, and then where are you going to go? That is the options for these people. I was very lucky that my house only flooded a little bit. I work in social media. I produce a reality show, and we were actually filming that week, so we came and worked it. But what if I didn't have the time to call my insurance the night that we flooded? What if I was working full-time and had 4 little kids? Like, you don't understand how much paperwork and process, like, you lose everything. You have no idea where to start. My house wasn't even that bad. And, like, it was a ton of work, which we filmed and documented. And I also met with other people. Their businesses flooded. Their homes lit on fire. I interviewed this mom. Her business flooded. And then we got hit with a second hurricane. Her house blew up because a power line fell on it. She has a 2-year-old. She's pregnant and just had her baby shower. Her business and her home were lost within the 2 weeks.
Remember, you guys, these are natural disasters that really none of us can really prepare for. And if we lose our house, if we lose that asset, that property tax bill, it still rages on. If you don't pay your property taxes, the county sells that lien to a hungry pack of wolves that can foreclose on you. In other words, greed is destroying everything. It's destroying culture. It's destroying communities. It's absolutely out of control. And so again, you guys, we need your help. Continue to share this video, continue to be proactive with us, continue to learn and help and grow. Mitch Vexler, let's go back into the forward. Can you please read part 5?
Any person who signed an oath of office, including but not limited to school superintendents, school district boards, chief appraisers, central appraisal district boards, district attorneys, lawyers, legislators, or judge who refuses to enforce the black letter of the law should be removed from their position, disbarred, and or impeached and sued for damages. In the case of the chief appraisers, school district superintendents, their lawyers, and the outside accounting firms that shirk audit requirements with, "We were just doing what we were given," are aiding and abetting a criminal conspiracy to defraud, should be jailed under RICO. Pay us the money or we will take the house. Get a second job and pay your taxes. We are DCAD and the public has to trust us. In other words, this cast of criminals believes they answer to no one. Any sale of securities without a modicum of due diligence at the selling entity, wherein the value of the bond is predicated on a fraud, places liability onto the bond underwriter and those selling the bonds. Who are the bondholders? Pension funds and 401k owners. Who are they? Mom and pop. Therefore, not only is the equity being stripped from their largest assets, the value of their homes, but also the pensions and 401ks are being rendered de minimis as the bond values are predicated on a fraud. Any vote and violation of the law to continue knowingly with intent perpetuate a fraud makes the person voting for ignoring the law a fraudster and further subverts the black letter of the law. Prohibiting the discovery of the fraud makes those who are prohibiting the discovery of that fraud, including judges who opine to politics and not following the law, aiding and abetting a criminal conspiracy to commit fraud. If the law does not exist for the protection of the citizens, then there is no reason to be paying real estate tax. The only thing that matters is the median household income from which the true math of finance must be derived. Leverage for the sake of fraud must be eliminated. Thus, aside from the necessary criminal prosecution, repeal the real estate tax in favor of the uniform state sales tax and restore the balance sheet to mom and pop by allowing them to own the asset beneath their feet. The Department of Justice must do its job to tip the scales of justice back into the hands of mom and pop and away from the criminals and their co-conspirators. We will show the DOJ exactly how this is a $1 trillion plus issue to the US economy.
Before Mitch finishes the forward, I want to show you guys a couple active listings on the multiple listing service. And my goal was to show you guys 2 active listings, to show you as the viewer, 2 active listings that houses that are in the $200,000 range. And I wanted to see if I could find a tax bill, a yearly property tax bill of around $10,000. Let me show you guys what I found. This is so important because this is an active listing. So this first home right here has been listed for $279,900. This has been up for sale for 51 days. Now, unfortunately, the county has decided to assess this property at $344,905, making their total annual tax a whopping, and this is crazy to say out loud, $11,470 for that little house. Here's another one right here, 25404 Grotto Falls Lane. This has only been listing according to this for 2 days. This home is attempting to sell for $235,000. So the low end of the $200,000. But unfortunately, as we can see here, the county has decided to assess them for $283,426, making their total annual taxes a whopping $9,425 per year. Here's another issue with that. People that want to purchase those homes, they can't even qualify for that, even if they get an FHA loan, because the property taxes are so high. This is absolutely crazy. I just wanted to show the viewers again that this problem exists. You know, we're trying to hit it at every single angle here. If you can, Mitch, can you finish the forward out now?
This sworn testimony will walk the DOJ through what laws are being broken and the road of how they are being violated, along with who is responsible. There is a massive amount of evidence, including the government's own documents, In addition to this video, we are providing the DOJ with a spreadsheet list of the evidence that corresponds to the exhibits mentioned in the video. Each exhibit has a link to the full document, and in addition to those documents, they are also on mockingbirdproperties.com/DCAD and www.commonsenselaw.org. All the evidence points to the laws existing but not being enforced by any member in the chain of authority, starting with the chief appraisers and ending with Glenn Hagar, the Texas State Comptroller, all of which is a violation of the law at its core, as well as the rule of law, for which solution is federal criminal prosecution by the DOJ and the SEC of those responsible parties of authority who have sworn an oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the state of Texas and the Constitution of the United States of America. It is the fraud itself that has made housing unaffordable. It is the fraud that has put 30% plus of the households in harm's way of bankruptcy or losing the roof over their head. It is the cumulative compounding of the fraud that has caused roughly $5 trillion in bond fraud. It is the school district fraud, the taxing entities, and their owned central appraisal districts that has caused many homes to have school bond debt of 50% over the deemed home value, thus making homeowners potentially responsible for 2 mortgages, of which they never agreed to. What black letter of the law exists to equity strip property owners across the United States? In trying times like these, great leaders arise to fill the void of ignorance and financial chicanery left behind by the fraudsters who now have been discovered. None of what you are about to see has anything to do with politics, but has everything to do with math, the rule of law, and the black letter of the law. This sworn video testimony opening statement, along with the criminal complaint and the exhibits, are integral and form the basis of requested prosecution of those who conspired and continue to conspire to defraud the property owners and thus the American public.
Now take that forward and forward that to as many people as possible. And I want to end today's video by once again giving you a call to action. It doesn't matter whether or not you're a homeowner or you own a home, go to the Real Estate Mindset Empowerment Center. On the homepage, you can see right here, if you already own a home, take this free course by Mitch Vexler, absolutely free. There's multiple downloads. When you scroll down here, if you're not a homeowner, you see right here, I've made this free course for you on how to buy a house. This is going to teach you a lot of stuff. Here's a free subdivision analysis form. You guys see that? We're trying really hard to make a difference in this world. Now, also, if you own a home, this is the course that I made for you guys on how to fight your assessed value with comps. I also made you this free form. In other words, you guys, please help us. And all we need you to do to help us is to help yourself. Let's not turn our backs anymore. Let's step up to the municipalities. Let's demand that we are fairly taxed, and let's take back the American home and give it back to its people. No longer should someone get kicked out of their house just because they can't afford their property taxes. And other than that, guys, comment below. Let us know how we did. Incredibly powerful stuff today, but I want to hear from you. And other than that, if you're out there just investing in your life, handling your property taxes, investing in real estate, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.